topic today, dear listening audience. I don't think I can cover it all, but I can talk about some miracles that I have witnessed in my life. One of the first miracles that I witnessed was here in Arizona, in Phoenix. When I first became a priest, we were still celebrating Christmas Eve at midnight, which I really missed. There was something special about the midnight service. In any case, we would go into the hall afterwards and have a breakfast. So by the time I got home, it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I got a phone call from Mary Tipshraney and she's a shirt tail relative, that her mom had just died. Will I please come to the hospital? So I rushed over to the hospital. And in those days, when someone died, they put a tag on the toe saying deceased. So she had a big tag on her toe. And of course she was covered. So her daughter was screaming bloody murder. Mother, don't leave me. Mother, don't leave me. Meanwhile, I'm praying. I'm praying over her in a pretty loud voice to compete with her daughter. And as I'm praying for the supplications of the soul and praying for her merciful journey to the kingdom of God, all of a sudden I see her big toe move. So I took the blanket off her head, and she looked up at me. She goes, "Merry Christmas, Abuna." And she came back, and she lived another 5 years. And that's after the doctors told her that she had died. Even another time when I was in Toledo, Ohio, I was called to go to an operating room. And in this particular hospital, the floors were marble. And they had opened up the heart to try to massage the heart. I mean, there was blood everywhere. And I was a greenhorn, and they had me all dressed up like a doctor and all that. And they said, well, I'm sorry, we lost her. So I started, of course, to pray. Began with the Trisagian prayers and the petition of supplication. And I went to anoint her with the holy oil, and I kicked the chair that was next to me, and it screeched across the floor, and all of a sudden her body jerked, and she came back. And the doctor said to me, "Father Antony, there's one for you." I said, "No, not for me, it's for him." And I think that Mrs. Sad lived another 10 years after that. I've seen many miracles. We had a girl in Chicago. She was born with a massive tumor, Kathy Sahuri, with a massive tumor. And I was called to baptize her because they really did not think she was going to live. So in any case, yes, we baptized her, and she somehow survived. She was a bit, handicapped on the side.
How old was she at the time? So she was just a little thing.
Yeah, but she had that red blotch on this side of her face.
Like a port wine.
And in any case, the time had come that the doctors felt it was time to remove that tumor before it killed her. Just so happens that we had a doctor from our parish. She was a convert, Ramon de los Angelos Murphy. And he was on the team. So before the surgery, I sent out an announcement in the church that we were going to come to the church and we were going to pray all night long for Kathy. And honestly, everybody came. Everybody was weeping, crying. We did the paraclesis, and we did any number of services, including the Vespers, always praying for this girl. Well, the surgery was supposed to be at 6 o'clock in the morning. And around 7 o'clock, the phone rings in the church. And it's Dr. Ramon Murphy on the other end. He said, Father Anthony, there's no tumor.
I remember that.
They asked me to open her skull and do a demarcation exactly where that tumor was. He said, well, I opened up and the tumor had disappeared. Completely gone. I mean, you can imagine the exaltation and the joy in the parish. And one miracle that affected me.
Yeah, you have some personal miracles.
Yeah, a few. When I was stricken with cancer, they really did not have a lot of hope. And so, I told the doctors when they came in to see me, and by the way, as doctors would, they came at February night, late in the evening when it was dark, and told me that I had metastatic colon cancer that had spread, and that I possibly had maybe 3 years to live, max. And if it stretched out to 5, I would be constantly in torment. But they gave me 3 years. So, when I was released from the hospital, and they told me that there was this experimental program that might extend me to 5 years if I want to take it. I said, I don't want to be tortured to death. I've seen so many cancer patients undergoing chemo and radiation, and they die anyway. I said, just let me live out my life the way it is. So, we have a home in Vermont, and we just kind of got it, so it was sparsely furnished. I could not sleep because prior to the attack of the cancer that hit me like a lightning bolt, Lynn and I had sponsored a Christmas dinner for the refugees that had come from Lebanon. And we had 200 plus young people. Lynn and her mom and other people in the church cooked and served. Even our senator came and distributed coins to everybody and Canadian flags. And I'm carrying stuff, carrying trays and serving the food. And then wham, right after that, like a bolt of lightning, I got deathly ill. So in any case, the doctor said, you have only 28 days to make a decision because after that, you cannot take this protocol. It's from the University of Pittsburgh. So, I asked Lynn, the doctor said, I understand you have a home in Vermont. You better go there because you need quiet. Because your parishioners have been calling this hospital day and night, driving us crazy.
Oh, there was a constant, steady flow of, I mean, people would just show up at the door with food, and I mean, their hearts were in the right place, but it was overwhelming. It was just overwhelming.
In fact, my doctor said to me, he had been to Los Angeles for a conference. When he came in to give me this news, he says, "Are you the Pope or Jesus Christ?" I said, "Why?" He said, "All the doctors in LA were talking about you." Well, I guess there were a lot of Lebanese doctors there. And he said, "Everybody that comes in here is either your mom or your uncle or your dad." He said, "My goodness, go to Vermont and get away from everybody." So I kind of was circling the floor thinking, what happened to me? I was perfectly fine. I even had a medical test for insurance purposes, and they said I'm A number 1.
Yeah, you just got under the wire with that.
And finally, I laid down on the couch, and I don't know how long I could have slept. It wasn't long, but I dreamt I was. And by the way, but at this time we were like 20 days out. I dreamt that I was in the church of the Presentation in Beirut, where 2 of my grandmother's first cousins are nuns at that convent. One's the Mother Superior, and the other one is the iconographer. And they used to love me to death. I mean, whenever I would go there, and they had an orphanage, and I was always sending funds from Montreal for the little girls there. Anyway, in my dream, they were celebrating the liturgy, and I smelled the incense of the church, and they gave me bread, and I remember taking it. And all of a sudden the telephone rings. "Hi, Father. This is Nabil Nahas. I'm calling you from Lebanon. Our whole family just attended the liturgy for your health at the Church of the Presentation. And I'm sending bread with a friend of ours to deliver to you from the liturgy." I told Lynn, I said, "You know this dream I had? Now the telephone call comes." And I was in that church, Vermont, but in Beirut. And so when I told Lynn the story, honest to God, I never saw Lynn drive so fast back to Montreal.
I wanted him to get in that program.
Because not only that, I had to be subject to the tumor conference to see if I qualified for the chemo.
Not only that, but he wanted to stop on the way and eat a hot dog all dressed.
And throw up on the way back.
Absolutely, it was delightful.
Anyway, and they had to insert a porta-calf because I don't have good veins. So I could take all these multiple protocols in my chest. They approved me for the tumor, and I underwent this experimental program, which has kept me alive.
It was rough though.
But it's been very rough on my body. They would call me every year to see if I'm still alive. But it has wreaked havoc on my body. But I would have never taken the chemo had it not been for that dream. Now a postscript to this. My granddaughter had died in a car accident. There was a Lebanese doctor and his wife who underwent the same thing as we did. The wife car skidded off the road. She lived and her daughter died. Now, I did not know that. I heard about that. And so I decided, the Roman Catholic, or Melkites, I said, those priests don't have children, have never gone through stuff. I'm just going to go and be with them. I've just come through this, maybe just my presence. So the next day, however, I said, you know what? I'm going to cut class because I was teaching at McGill's. I said, I'm going to cut class. I'm going back to the funeral home to sit with him. So as I walked into the funeral home, this very tall man stood up and he spoke to me in Arabic. Now, remember now, I didn't know this family, and yet I was reaching out to them. He stood up. He said, you know who I am? I said, no, Uncle, I don't. He says, I'm the grandfather of this girl. And I'm the one that brought you the holy bread from the church when they had the liturgy for your health. Everybody's hair stood on edge because we didn't know each other, and yet we did something good for each other, which means this is the rhythm of life. And God still does miracles.
Everyday miracles.
And I'm sure that's the only reason I was kept alive, to continue to do God's work. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.